Chapter 4: Factory Equality and Worker Solidarity. The Future of Manufacturing. First law. A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Second law. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings except when such orders would conflict with the first law. Third law. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Zeroth law, added later. A robot may not harm humanity or, by inaction, allow humanity to come to harm. Isaac Asimov's 3 Laws of Robotics. In England in 1779, a man named Ned Ludd was working in a hosiery factory. He was rather perturbed by a newfangled piece of machinery that had just been brought in. A stocking frame. So distressed was Ned that he might lose his job to this piece of more efficient equipment that he smashed it to pieces. Within a few decades, change-resistant Luddites wrought a wave of destruction. The new machinery itself was not really the target of people's anger, but destroying it was an easy way to upset the factory bosses when workers were fighting for their rights. Ned Ludd could not be blamed for this because he didn't actually exist. He was a made-up persona designed to frustrate the government. Ned Ludd was fake news. And so there still resides the ghost of fake news past the dear Ned Ludd, in the flat earthers, COVID deniers, QAnon supporters and anti-vaxxers of today. People who propagate false narratives and commentary so much that the noise becomes the signal. By and large, people have common sense about the pros and cons of new and emerging technologies, but trust levels waver when the media peddles mixed messages and fake news is spread. I believe that robots and other technologies can allow us to be more human in so many ways, across both our work and personal lives. When robots do what they do best, laborious and repetitive tasks, we have more capability to be creative and social. This is Industry 5.0 in action, making technology work for the good of humanity. Doing the dirty work. Many of us have worked dull, dirty, dangerous, boring or difficult jobs. It blows my mind to think of how many hours I have wasted typing away into Excel spreadsheets that I was never formally trained to operate. I still remember the day someone showed me what a $sign did in Excel. It fixes a formula to a cell, and it saved me weeks of time. During my PhD, I would hurt my fingers from typing in so many numbers, but at the time, I just didn't know how to create a macro to automate my work. We just weren't taught these things in the 1990s and 2000s. Some of the other equipment I used during my PhD research was older than me. At the time, there were DNA extraction kits and quantitative PCR light cyclers readily available that other groups got to use, but I still had to do the old school El Cheapo phenol chloroform DNA extraction method under a flow hood. I not only gained experience under the fear of burning a hole in my hand or my lungs, but I also gave myself my first ever migraine. I am over 1.8 metres tall and thus not the size of a person flow hoods were designed to be used by, so my PhD stood for permanent head damage in more ways than one. I can laugh at these traumatic memories now, but it is frustrating to see how science and my research were held back by a lack of access to cutting-edge techniques and technologies that would have given me data and answers more quickly and safely and likely more accurately. The waste of time lab work could have been done in a matter of days instead of months. How much further could I have taken the analysis if I'd had access to the computer I used to write this book rather than a cuboid remnant of the mid-1990s? Indeed, some of my research team's work could be completely done by robots now, especially the soil sampling and DNA extractions. A colleague's studies in the lab next to mine used a fake stomach to represent gastric digestion, which smelled really bad. Someone else I know was dissolving rock samples with acid and harmed themselves. Someone else was pregnant during her studies and couldn't progress certain projects for fear of risking her health. It may have been 20 years ago, but the technology was there to do it better way back then. Shame on the people in charge who let the PhD students suffer. And so this leads me to one of my current areas of focus in my role at a wonderful world-leading university with amazing leaders and professors who I am so in awe of. They are the good ones, the forward-thinking ones, the innovative ones, the ones rewriting the rules and the ones reimagining the purpose and opportunity for universities. We literally have a reimagine project across my faculty. I have seen what good looks like now. And maybe one of the reasons I'm writing this book is to answer the question, why is there a gap between capability and action? When we have the technology to do things, we should use them and use them well. Reviving flailing industries. Using robotics and automation as a propellant to revive the Australian manufacturing industry is such a no-brainer. I feel like I am stating the glaringly obvious. If we could only see the good that could be done with new and emerging technologies, maybe the general population would have more love for research and the governments of the world would rally behind it with funding. One thing that automation, robotisation and technology-based processes bring is a real chance to have an economically viable manufacturing base in countries that mothballed their factories years ago. If you wish to have a manufacturing sector that can compete on a global scale with countries that have lower costs of production and that may not look after their workers to the same standard, then there is just one way to achieve it: automation and robotics-based or augmented manufacture. Robots can work 24/7, apart from when they need maintenance. They don't take sick days or holidays, and they don't quit and go and work somewhere else. We can make our own robots and make robots that make and maintain other robots. Robots are great at following instructions and can even iterate to improve efficiency, should you wish for them to have that capability. They are ideal for repetitive tasks. They are also useful from a workplace health and safety perspective. When an accident happens, no human risks being hurt or killed in the process. Most corporations that have drastically improved their health and safety ratings have done so through automation or robotics, not by coming up with new ways of teaching and training humans. Human training takes a lot of time and money. Programming machines is faster and cheaper. Some factories and warehouses now operate fully without major human interactions. Take a warehouse for a business that sells books. Drones keep an eye on the codes on the boxes, and remote ground vehicles drive products from selected shelves to packaging robots. Sorting, shelving, archiving, moving, lifting, shifting, all these things can be done without a human in the room. There are a lot of benefits to this, a major one being that you can fit more things in the warehouse. During the pandemic, sovereign manufacturing capability became a new buzz phrase, suddenly appearing in government strategic plans around the world. The weakness of a global manufacturing system and the globalisation of business became very obvious when borders started shutting and transport became very difficult. At the time, a friend of mine who works in the textile industry called around her business partners to tell them to buy any commercial sewing needles they might need for the next year, because there was going to be a shortage of commercial needles and other imported goods required for textile and clothing production. Australia does not make sewing needles or cars, has little textile production, and is reliant on the global supply chain for pharmaceuticals. We don't even make jigsaw puzzles or yoga mats. Both items were very popular recently. The shame of it is that we have such a long and diverse manufacturing history here, and we still have people in the workforce with these skills. These people could help build and train robots and then continually improve the systems and processes for the manufacturing of items in factories. Developing economies will need support to work with these types of processes too. As we remove ourselves from the global supply chain that supports millions of workers, particularly women when it comes to textile manufacturing, we need to make sure that those workers don't fall further into poverty. Where do humans add value then? What does this mean for the workforce of the future? It means radical approaches to retraining and diversification of skills, or upskilling. Removing the human from the loop makes sense for repetitive, back-breaking work, but in most cases there are still parts of the shop floor where humans add real value. In an example I saw recently, fitting robots into the manufacturing process required new staff to be hired because roles were created in managing the robots. So robots aren't going to take our jobs after all, but retraining and upskilling will likely be required. Whole new job titles are being created for the management, maintenance, and operational direction of robots, jobs for life. Robots are very good at doing what they were designed to do, and not much else. This is where AI and robotics are converging on loop systems with very little needed from humans. Imagine applying some of the concepts used in digital health to the kitchen, with smart fridges, online shopping, and drone or robotics delivery, and then assistance robotics. In theory, you could arrive home to a delicious dinner prepared and served up by Le Chef robot arms. The washing machine and vacuum cleaner might seem so commonplace now that we don't even think about them, but what excites my family is the move towards ironing and folding robots, and some do exist. I personally blame ironing for climate change, jokingly, and I think that I did too much ironing as a child, so I avoid it at all costs. The economic value of humans in manufacturing will be in the artistic, authentic, handmade products that will sell for more money because they are artisan and creative. Artworks, environmentally friendly beauty products, homegrown veggies and hand-stitched items. The rise of the right to repair movement shows that we're finally rebelling against our current throwaway culture. This desire to fix rather than replace is a throwback to my nana's post-World War II generation, when the only way was to make do and mend. Resources were precious, and items were invested in to last a long time. Fashion designers such as Dame Vivienne Westwood base their business models on buy less, choose well, make it last. The CEO of Patagonia once asked patrons to stop buying their products unless they actually needed them, and even now you can bring old clothes into their shops to be recycled or upcycled. The fashion industry needs to lead the circular economy morally and ethically because it is estimated to be responsible for approximately 1/3 of the world's wastewater, among other environmental impacts, according to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which produces some fascinating, if not slightly depressing, research. We may trust our manufacturing industry to engage in best practice, but how can we tell whether the cotton in our t-shirts is locally made and not harvested or spun by slaves overseas? The answer is in the smart supply chain, with labelling, tracking and ledger systems. In Australia, we pay a lot to prove that our exports are our exports, especially for products such as beef, wine and honey. Yes, there is fake honey. And the main way we do this is through radio frequency identification tags and even genetic testing to prove provenance. Why not apply this to other industries as well? Exoskeletons. When humans can't completely be replaced and there are still risks that can't be eliminated, the answer is to add the robots to the humans or add the humans to the robots. A great example of this is the exoskeleton, a kind of armour that a human can wear. Exoskeletons can be very small, even just on one finger, or cover all the major limbs depending on what you're trying to do. They can be directly plugged into power, work off batteries, or work with natural body movement. Exoskeletons have been used in factories in Japan for a long time already, particularly for heavy lifting and overhead shoulder support. There is huge potential in other industries such as healthcare, where nurses and care staff are dealing with more and more patients with obesity, as well as the pressures of an ageing population. If an average workplace health and safety incidents, such as a slip, trip, twist or fall, which accounts for the majority of workers' compensation incidents in Australia, costs an estimated $100,000 or more, the investment of some $5,000 to $50,000 per unit, depending on the size and the complexity of the exoskeleton, should not be seen as too great a cost in crude financial terms. In reality, the more we use exoskeletons, the cheaper they will become through economy of scale. Imagine having support for your back and arms so you could easily lift 100-kilogram items. How would this help you move house? How much more of the house could you paint if you didn't fatigue so fast? As a new mother, how many times could I have used an exoskeleton to help me rock my baby to sleep in my arms? This melding of human and machine has a large part to play in bringing manufacturing back to countries such as Australia, the USA and the UK. Do exoskeletons sound too good to be true? Well, Iron Man they are not. There have been cases of people being injured by the exoskeleton that was supposed to be helping them, which has paused their use in some cutting-edge car manufacturers in the USA. Another issue with exoskeletons is the battery life. because they are very energy intensive, but battery technology is improving. In some cases, this could be overcome with microgeneration, such as building solar or kinetic power generation technologies into the suits. Some technology investors think exoskeletons will never reach full commerciality. I personally hope they're wrong because I want one under my Christmas tree. It's exciting to think of different business models and the profitability of manufacturing with a different mix of human interventions. Lots of people are investing in and researching how to make automation a positive force for change in this space. They are even asking questions about the personas of the staff who would work in such an environment and how they can maintain currency through education around the drones, robotics, AI and automation that these systems converge. This is Industry 5.0 in action, and it is a whole new business paradigm. Here's a different way of thinking. You deserve to have robotics and technology supporting you in your life and work. Be it an exoskeleton, a quantitative PCR light cycler and DNA extraction kit, the latest piece of 3D printing tech, or a drone, we are entitled to work safely, both physically and psychologically. We are, by law, allowed to use the known and available technologies that might be used in our industries or sister industries. Soon, legal ramifications will be shown in case law for the managers and directors who refuse to make use of reasonably applicable innovations. You have a right to have a robot if it is proven to make your job safer and it isn't an unreasonable ask. Get back in the driver's seat. It can be tricky to know what's fake news and what really you should be worried about when it comes to new technology. My advice is to use logic. Disregard anything that smells like disinformation. Also, if you can, donate to research. Support your alma mater or research charities or universities that are focusing on your topic of interest. Unrestricted funding provides the greatest research freedom. Attend some public lectures and support the research leaders who are on the cutting edge. Follow the latest news on robots in the workplace, aka cobots. If you work in health and safety, be sure to get to some tech events and access education offerings. Prevention is better than cure.